Vamos para allá. No he cambiado nada en él todavía. No he jugado en estos últimos 2 días. Sigue siendo el mismo. Déjame ver que me muteado que se escucha la clase de fondo. ¿Por qué no? Es más, antes de tirarme un online. ¿Y tú has jugado en estos días? Perdí.
Your mic's off.
Alright, thanks for that. I have 2 different monitors going on this older computer, and it's just I get so many I don't know. It's kind of confusing. I have to get used to it again. Thanks for that. Did you hear that? You heard that little story named Carnegie, right?
Oh shit. Ok, ya duran.
Let me show you
Yo
a
me
little bit
conecté
more.
en una coño de él, vendí Wisconsin, me compré a Malone en el centro, vendí a PDD y me compré a Wallace. Duro.
Here it is. Alright, perfect.
¿Cuánto le sacaste a PG?
He was born in Scotland in 1834, and he died in 1919, just after World War I in America. He was a philanthropist. That vocab word means he gave away a lot of his money. An entrepreneur is someone who starts a business. They take a risk. So these vocab words are kind of important. The whole point of high school really is to kind of expand your vocabulary, make you better communicators. So it's always good to learn new vocab words. So a philanthropist is someone who gives away their money and or does charitable work. Could be like volunteer work. An entrepreneur is someone who starts a business. So philanthropist and an entrepreneur, Andrew Carnegie was
Vamos a ver, haciendo el tema empezando.
in Dunfermline, Scotland, in 1835.
Me pide que comprando
Carnegie's
ahí, ¿no?
father decided to relocate
Más
the
que
family
sí,
to the
lo
United
puse en
States, but
subasta.
the power loom
Acuérdate que PG bajo compra, no se va a vender igual.
made his hand loom work obsolete. So he was working on an old-fashioned machine. He decided to go to America. The Carnegie settled in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, where Andrew took his first job at a cotton factory at around age 12. Carnegie next went to work at a telegraph office.
¿Y ese quién es?
Electronic messages over wire. The predecessor to the
Ajá,
telephone, where he met Pennsylvania Railroad Company Superintendent Thomas Scott. He went to work for Scott. He made numerous wise financial investments, sold railroad securities in Europe. Those are investments,
¿Qué malos pasos estoy haciendo?
and founded the Carnegie Steel Company, which revolutionized.
Pasan más mierda.
Big change, revolutionized steel making in the United States. By the turn of the century, Andrew Carnegie had amassed a fortune. In 1901, he sold many of his assets
Clase bolazo.
for nearly $250 million.
A ver, para meter duran. Dale. Pero si no aldea.
To the value of today's money, that's a significant sum of money. $250 million, shifting his attention away from business and devoting himself to philanthropy. He long believed that anyone who had gained a great degree of wealth was responsible for using it to improve the lives of others. He founded several charities
Bro, todo es malo.
for the improvement of schools, the building of libraries and theaters, scientific research, and global peace initiatives. Major Carnegie died in Mass. Oh, is it? No, Lenox.
Falló.
Lenox, Massachusetts.
Brother, tú eres malo.
And left $350 million to charity. So that was a significant amount of money. And again, I just want to reiterate.
Cuitea.
In the local
Cuitea.
industry,
Cuitea.
there were other wealthy people here in Utica that knew Carnegie, and they also agreed with his idea, his philosophy of giving away philanthropy, giving away a lot of their wealth.
Mario
And
Pandúa.
most prominent here in Utica were probably the Munson
Volado.
Fields and the Proctor, the Thomas R. Proctor, Frederick R. Proctor families. They amassed a lot of wealth.
Vamos.
Because they made their money in, they started off in hotels and eventually switched into banking and other investments. And they gave away a lot of their money back to the city of Utica in the form of, they bought up a lot of land and created a lot of the parks.
Yo estoy loco.
Not just Thomas R. Proctor Park and Conklin Park, but also these smaller parks.
But you jumping.
The smaller
Ah, por favor.
they donated the land for those. They donated a lot of land and resources.
Hacho, mano, yo estoy esperando que Ben Simon baje porque en todos estos días, a pesar de que bajo a compra, lo suben otra bien duro. Bajan dos y después no hay ninguno. Ah, se mamó.
And in that gallery on Genesee Street are literally millions and millions of dollars worth of paintings that they had amassed over their lifetime, and they left it essentially to the city of Utica. And so, you know, I like to tie in the local history when we're talking about stuff that's textbook.
Sí, mano. Y no baja de precio. Se queda más que en 100,000.
Classwork today. Now the classwork, we will look at it today, so let's take a
Es
look.
más noche que la hora.
Gotta find the class.
Bebé, creo que ahorita va a salir un Harlem Opal.
Now hopefully I've been posting this stuff
Duro.
correct. There's a couple other biographies, J. Cool, J.P. Morgan. We'll take a look at those other ones.
No sé, Harlem Jaro.
Even
Hay más que lo matan bien hackeado.
industrialists like everyone seems to remember Henry Ford.
Ah, ¿esto es el tenis?
Still around today. But
Este no es el tenis. No, este no es. Ah, ya voy a decir yo.
A major oil company, and there's other ones too. Thomas
Este es más barato, tú me estás hablando claro.
Graham Bell started the
Ay, Dios.
system. So let's take a look at the classwork for today. Let me see, I thought I posted it on here. Oh yeah, here it is, right in front. Classwork 3.9. So notice I listed a whole bunch of assignments.
De eso sí, no sé qué hacer. Si compararme a Malone primero o compararme a Ben Simon. Yo creo que yo me voy a comprar a Ben Simon primero porque la banca me está aguantando súper bien. Malone puede esperar un poquito, pero quiero Ben Simon ya. Quiero sacar la juega por el carajo. Brother, estaba un juego bien pegado y Rudy me falló el clutch, me falló un alley-oop teniendo takeover de Slasher. Y yo como que, en serio, brother, la dejaste encajada en el aro. Terminó 84-83. Nada más por ese gol. Quedaban .6 segundos y falló el alley-oop. La dejó encajada en el aro.
So you can hear me, right? Alright, good. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Just let me know the assignment that I'm opening up. Now, hopefully I posted this right. Introduction to the Industrial Revolution. It says IR worksheet PDF. I'm going to try and open this up. Alright, it opened up. Perfect. I'm going to open it up with the Cami software.
Why not?
A little bit better. Well, I'm used to it. And then I'll try and make the font a lot bigger.
You gonna guard? Oh damn.
Increase the size of this font.
You gonna guard me? You gonna guard me? The disrespect.
Let me just go back to the chat line for a second. speakers are acting weird today.
Yeah, we realize that.
Let me see if is there anything in the chat line. No. All right, terrific. So I'm going to go back to the assignment. Hopefully everybody was able to open that, right? Right to the point. And instead of reading a whole chapter here, we can it sums up the main points really in like.
Tengo que hacer un party. No quiero estar hablando con un gringo ahora.
As far as
¡Sura!
easy to read and easy to get into.
¿Tú no vas a galdear?
Let's take a look at this.
Vamos.
Call up a highlighter here. All right. So all you gotta do for these
Ese es malo.
is read
Vamos,
the
tío.
paragraph.
Anda, bro, tú eres malo.
I'm not too worried about the questions. That's not the point. The point is to read the paragraph stuff.
Esto no me va a ganar, ¿verdad?
Failed to do this. And if you want to try and incorporate some participation points today, does anybody want to read the first one?
Mi Rudy una vez me metió a una clase de arriba para cerrar el juego y sí.
Thousands of years, there was
Hacho, a mí me dañó el clutch. Me dañó el clutch, mano.
skilled workers made their goods by hand, one at a time, usually in their homes. In the 1700s, people began to experiment to find a better way to make things better.
Después Alonso fallándome triple solo.
Complicated and powerful machines soon were developed to replace simple hand tools. A new source of power was discovered.
Alonso fallándome solo. Rudy falló el clutch. Y el pana guardiándome a CPU. Y con todo eso se fue 83-84.
Pistons, and so steam engines were the first source of
Vamos.
steam engines began to be used to run the machines. They also used those, remember those water wheels? They would use water wheels that would near streams to turn the belts. That was another source of power. A new source of power was also, wait a minute, I read that. This development of new machines and new sources of power became known
Panama
as the
Galdea.
Industrial Revolution. Alright, so I'm just going to put new machines, new source of power. Industrial means factory, industry. Revolution is just a new way of doing things. So, Industrial Revolution greatly changed the way that people lived and worked.
No Galdea.
Instead of working on goods by hand at home, people went
Para eso sí, no sé si venderlo.
to factories.
No sé si venderlo a Rudy.
This happened
No sé cómo está ahora mismo.
Germany,
Aunque no es por nada, depende del precio que esté, lo vendo. Y me compro encima hoy mismo.
to industrialize.
Porque yo voy a ver si sigo jugando
It's a whole new way of life had developed.
offline.
It really changed everything.
Puedo ganar el MT rápido, más si lo vendo.
A little bit less important
MT aparte gratis.
began to grow. So
Prácticamente.
really, the Industrial
Tú lo
Revolution
matas.
changed everything about the way people lived and made money and had access to resources.
Vamos.
Really see, right?
Para no buscar el triple a la mala.
I guess that's the best answer. Moving on. Number 2, the Industrial Revolution began in England. England had a lot of coal,
Ya tardó.
and they had
Que yo
some
cojo
early steam engine
el punto
technologies.
final.
The machines were first used to weave
Vamos acá.
cloth.
Richard.
They wanted to protect this advantage, so they had like some industrial secrets they wanted to keep, some technologies and designs and patents they didn't want
Que no va a galdear.
the country. English wanted to protect their advantage by making peace certain. Other countries
No hay cuánto se vende Rudy. Si se vende bastante, lo vendo ahora mismo.
remember they were controlling the way America traded with them at first. The plans to their machines were carefully guarded secrets. Machines, their plans, and even
Es más, vendo a Rudy y a Kirilenko.
factory made cloth. Textile workers were not allowed to leave the country even. In 1789,
Voy a ver, si me sale lo que quiero, voy a vender los dos.
this guy Samuel Slater
Si están a buen precio.
England, and he memorizes the plans in his brain. So
Entonces, de una vez me compro hoy mismo a Ben Simon.
he didn't have any plans with him.
Entonces, saco a Kirilenko y meto a Ben Simon en el triple threat.
The type of gears and how the gears interacted in a weaving machine. So Samuel Slater, a mechanic in England, he worked in an English weaving mill. He managed to move to the United States. Before he left, he memorized the plans for a weaving machine. So in 1790, he built a
Es que te digo, cuando está un paquete de rosita ahí, no cae. Pero como son toques de una.
Factories soon sprang up all over the country. Slater became known as the father of the American factory system. All right, so Samuel Slater's
Vamos a
kind of
ver.
in weaving, the first factories were cloth making factories.
Rudy. ¿Dónde está Rudy, papá?
Really, B, right? He brought the Industrial Revolution to the United States, probably more than anything. I would say that's a good answer. All right, moving on. After the Civil War, factories in the United States grew very rapidly. We stopped fighting each other and we focused on our factories and our cities and rebuilding America. There are several reasons for this growth. So America was in a good situation
24.
for growth.
Damn.
We had the things you needed. We had the raw materials, we had the technologies, we had the manpower, the workers,
22.
and we had some capital, some money to invest in these
Ah, vamos a
things.
venderlo.
Those
Puede
four
pasar.
elements really to start really big businesses. And America had all those things at that
Ok,
point.
so
Railroads,
tú te
ship
vas
materials,
y tú te vas.
raw materials are the natural resources to the factories. They could also ship the finished factory-made goods all across
So
the
a
country.
ti te puedo
There
meterle
were all
en...
kinds of new natural resources being developed. Coal and iron was being dug out of the ground. Timber was being cut down. All sorts of metals, other metals were being mined
Tipo,
and
podemos poner
discovered.
fácil.
Eventually we got into oil and
21.800.
petroleum products.
Entonces,
There were new sources of
Kirilenko.
power.
Vamos a ver cuánto tú estás.
Oil and later electricity improved the way things were operated. Factories began to make new and better goods. And during this time, many people from other countries were moving to the United States.
Yo espero que
This
tú
was
estés
the
más por las
immigration
20.
boom that we're going
Más
to
de
talk
las
about
20.
as part of this topic.
Sí me gusta.
A
Sigue
lot of
subiendo,
people
sigue
were coming to
subiendo.
America all of a sudden because the trip to
Ok.
America became a little bit more affordable. Before the late 1800s, you had to come to America by a sailing ship, and you had to bring your own money, and you had to bring your own food and your own resources. And sailing ships were only so large, in a sense. It would take like a month or so to get here. At first,
25
it was
exacto los
2
voy a
months,
poner.
but eventually they got it down to about you could cross the ocean in about a month or so, 5 weeks. But once they started using steam ships and steam-powered ocean ships, you could cross the ocean.
Yo puedo sacar fácil. Yo creo que me da. Ay, ¿qué más tengo para vender? ¿Tú te puedo vender? No. Tú tampoco, tú tampoco. Más nadie. ¿Qué más tengo por aquí? A este se le puedo sacar 1000 en casa, se los voy a sacar. $1350, $1200. A ver, lo voy a poner 1000. ¿Por qué no? A ver quién más está por aquí. Hacho, no es por nada, pero pensé que estaba vendiendo carito. Al menos la última vez que lo chequeé. Está altito. Eso es lo que me da risa, porque Pippen está alto, pero el Roman está bien barato. El Roman yo lo compré, creo que fue en 11,000. Ah, alto por ahí. Es más, ¿cuánto tú te vendes? Mira el volado este. Oye, Ale, ¿a qué hora es que empieza lo de Limited? Tú eres loco. Te cojo tajón por el culo. ¿Quién empezó con? No, si yo estaba chequeando. Entonces no me sale. ¿Ves? No ha empezado. Y no hice hora ni nada.
laissez-faire basically means leave business alone. Let them prosper, little or limited government interference. So,
Tengo más nada para vender.
alright, so during the 1800s, the United States government favored business.
Entonces, dame ir
The government
bajándote.
followed the theory of
Pues ahorita
this
como a las 11 hay que
laissez-faire
seguir con los
That's an
packs.
important vocab word. Laissez-faire means leave business alone and kind of let them operate
Entonces,
with
encima lo pongo aquí
limited
arriba.
government interference. I'm just going to put government favored business.
¿Qué tú crees? ¿Cómo se va a ver el equipo así?
Not try to
Con Ben
control
Simmons.
business. Several high tariffs. Remember, a tariff is a tax on imported goods. That is usually done to protect American-made companies, American-made goods. So these are taxes on goods that are brought in from other countries or passed in order to help businesses and give them a little bit of an advantage. The
Entonces,
Supreme
pues
Court
saco aquí
often
en
ruled
los.
in favor of business. So the Supreme Court was often ruling in favor of the big businesses. The 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause to keep the states from passing laws to check large businesses. It also ruled
¿Quién se
that
vendió?
unions and strikes
Kirilengo.
were not legal. Unions are workers' organizations that demand better wages and better working conditions.
Ah, hecho, no es por
And
nada,
if they
pero.
don't get what they want, they sometimes go on strike,
Damn.
which means they don't work.
No pensé que me iba a quedar
They
tan
don't
corto.
work because they don't like the way the conditions
Y
are.
ahora no tengo equipo.
So all of these things are happening at the same time. So at first, it's very important
Hold
to
up.
remember that the government favored big business. So B,
Esto no
right?
es.
Now, sometimes this happens in waves. Like I would say, so the government's favoring big business at the end of the 1800s. And then we have World War I that kind of changed.
Ah, verdad que tengo esto.
things again.
Tengo que agregar ya.
The
Para rellenar.
1920s was another laissez-faire period.
Vamos a todo este.
Laissez-faire decade.
No es por nada, deberían de sacar una carta de este más alta.
Whatever they wanted, as long
Porque
as
está
they were
bastante
making
hackeado,
money,
no es por nada.
and creating jobs. The 1930s,
¿Cómo es que se llama?
Great Depression shifted everything away from that laissez-faire approach, and the government began to side a little bit
Diablo.
more with the workers and the unions.
Ah, el diablo, si hay uno más alta.
And then in the 1950s, after World War II, it kind of shifted to another
Clase A eso va a estar
laissez-faire period.
haciendo.
So it comes and goes in waves. And sometimes,
Apretado.
I would say Donald Trump.
Apretado.
Maybe we wouldn't necessarily describe him as laissez-faire, but he was certainly a big business component. He was in favor of big
Ok, so hay
business.
Hiche,
He wasn't
hay
too worried about
bronce.
raising minimum wage. He wasn't too worried about worker safety. He wasn't too worried about, protecting the
Voy a
environment.
matarla,
He was
el zafiro,
definitely
que
more
el que
of a
tengo.
laissez-faire approach to big business. And it seems like an outdated
Oye, Ale, hay un John Wall.
fit for Trump. Now is
Pin Diamond.
Biden
O
a
Diamond.
big laissez-faire president? Just kind of a shift away again. So far, Biden's been a little bit more focused on raising minimum wage, supporting the workers. So a lot of the businessmen don't want to pay the workers such a high wage because they feel like it'll cut into their profits. It'll increase the cost of doing business. It'll just raise the cost of living in general. So I would say Biden is kind of shifting away from that approach again. All right, so let's move on. All right, here is another sheet, and this is the exact same one. Oh wait, I know what I did. All right, so I put two of these little summary things on here. Let's take a look at this one. Now this is very similar, and then I have something different at the end. All right, so we got a lot of classwork today. That's all right. We're gonna work through it.
Ah, estaba pensando en comprarme a Kyrie. Comprarme a Kyrie y cambiarla a Oscar.
Volunteer to read, that would be great.
Porque no es por nada, Kyrie está bien duro.
Principals want me to start calling on people, but I don't really want to do that. I'll read it, I guess. The last 25 years of the 19th century is sometimes called the Gilded Age. All right, this vocab word is kind of important. Something that's gilded means it's covered in a
Fuck.
more expensive
Qué madre.
type of metal.
Habla que yo
So
tengo
you have
cosas.
a very cheap
Cuchara.
base metal underneath, and they put a more expensive metal over the top of it. Sometimes, like, you ever see a really cheap gold necklace, and you're wondering, well, if that's gold, how can it be so cheap? Because usually it's not gold all the way through. It's been gold plated. They put a thin layer of gold over the top of a much cheaper metal. or something else that could be gilded. A lot of artists will take they'll take gold flakes and they'll put it over like a wooden frame to make a nice gold picture frame. Now the whole thing's not made out of gold. What's underneath is really wood usually. So, or the Gold Dome Bank in Utica.
Anda. Y me van a romper el holto.
With the gold on top of it in the city. That's real gold on the top of there, by the way. It's not gold.
GG.
It was probably concrete.
F in the chat.
They put a real thin layer of gold over the top of that. That's what gilded means.
No te tires eso.
Mark
Mangión.
Twain used this word to describe
Eso va
this
adentro.
era. He's like, it looks good on the surface. It looks good. Businesses, technologies, we got the cities are growing. People are making money, but it's underneath. It's not so good. If you take a closer look at what's going on in America, it wasn't very good for the workers. It wasn't very fair for some of the immigrant groups. It wasn't very fair for some of the minority groups, and children and other people that there were many groups of people that were not.
Ay, me la saca de las manos. Vale.
During this period, so that's why.
Ay, Dios.
This period is the Gilded Age. The last 25 years of the 19th century, sometimes called the Gilded Age. During this time, there was a tremendous difference, extremes of wealth between the rich and the poor.
Eso no era para ti.
There was a tremendous difference between how the
Ayo.
rich and the poor lived. The
Chacho, está apretado.
earned only enough money to barely feed and clothe their families. Many people lived in dirty, overcrowded slum buildings without enough heat or ventilation.
Anda.
The working conditions of many jobs
Bueno.
workers were killed or injured. Few rich people, on the other hand, were able to spend
Vale.
millions
Damn, G.
built a special vacation home called the Breakers in Rhode Island, and he only lived in it like a couple of weeks of the year. It was a multiple $1,000,000 stone mansion on the ocean in Newport, Rhode Island, and
Toma.
him and a bunch of other wealthy
Mala mía, se olvidó que este es parque.
mansions right along the
PSP
ocean there.
glitch.
And they only lived in them for a couple of months of the year. The house
Mala
itself
mía.
cost several millions of dollars. The Vanderbilts spent
Porque él me tira para el
$9 million
frente.
just to furnish it,
Bien.
furniture in it. So, you got these people living extreme
Toma, me la animación más larga del mundo.
that were barely making it week to week. So there were extremes of wealth during this period. The rich and the poor lived very differently during this Gilded Age. Some business leaders spent most of their lives building up their companies and fortunes, and then they decided to give away some of the money when they retired. So this word philanthropist is someone who gives away their money. John D. Rockefeller was the guy that started Standard Oil Company, the biggest oil
No, pero los pes míos no funcionan, ¿verdad?
He was the world's first billionaire. He
Sí,
gave
él va a
away
fallar, seguro.
$500 million to charity. He donated money to churches, schools, libraries, and colleges. Andrew Carnegie made his millions in
No
the
cuido
steel
porque necesito la MT.
and he gave away a lot of his money as well, especially for libraries. After he retired, Carnegie gave over
Toma.
$400 million of his money away, and the money helped to start over 2,500 libraries. Even the library here on Genesee Street. At one time, I read this in a local history paper or something.
Ay, que lo acabe
Carnegie
ya.
was giving money to the city of Utica when they first started building that library. That library's been there since I think the late 1800s, by the way. Maybe early 1900s. I have to check the year.
Te voy a guardar.
They were
Bro, tú eres malo.
the Carnegie Library, and the people of Utica
Tú eres malo.
necessarily want to call it a Carnegie Library. So, the Proctors, Munson Williams family, the Devereaux, the Faxton's family, some of the prominent wealthy people in Utica
Ah, bueno, si el
decided,
pana falla solo.
we'll donate the money and we'll start our own library. We don't want to necessarily call it the Carnegie Library of Utica. They're probably in competition with this guy. Maybe they didn't like him. I don't know. They didn't want to come to this, so they declined his offer to fund some of the money for the Utica City Schools, or the library, the public library at Genesee. Genesee Street there. But philanthropists gave away their money to charity. J.P. Morgan was one of the greatest financiers,
Oh, damn.
like a investment banker, someone who invests big money in corporations. Doesn't necessarily run them. He might have a corporation to manage them, but he was a financier,
No sé si
like a big
reviso con
investor.
yo. Haga frío.
Like Shark Tank. J.P. Morgan was one of the greatest financiers of the United States history. During the Civil War, Morgan served his country and made money for himself by selling government bonds to other countries. A government bond is like an investment in our country, and it's like a loan. Morgan then began to buy up small railroad lines. The company he formed was the Northern Securities Company. This was a huge railroad conglomerate. It soon controlled the country's largest railroads. Morgan twice helped the government out of financial difficulty. He was so loaded that he, when the government was almost going bankrupt in the late 1890s, there was a economic panic. He literally loaned the government money out of his own bank accounts, and he had enough. He was basically comparable to the amount of money that the American government had. He had his own private funds. In 1895, a run on banknotes nearly wiped out the government's supply of gold. Morgan lent the government
Oh, Makuri se agregó Goku.
2%. So he literally lent the U.S. government money, or gold in this case. At that time, the standard rate was about 30%. So during the recession of 1907, Morgan bought gold for the government. When he formed the J.P. Morgan Company in 1895, Morgan was the richest person in the country. In 1901, Morgan formed the world's first billion-dollar business. He bought out Carnegie Steel and formed the U.S. Steel Company. So this guy was a pretty huge investor. Let's see. He was a great financier. When Theodore Roosevelt became president in 1905, large companies were known as trusts. Trusts were like an early word for monopoly. They were too big and powerful, and they controlled many industries. A trust was multiple industries. Roosevelt believed that trusts had too much power for the public good, so he ordered the Justice Department to break up the Northern Securities Company, that was Morgan's railroad company, into smaller competing railroads. Roosevelt also began
Mira lo que
cases
este loco está
against the
metiendo.
Oil and Chemical Tobacco Trust. Because he tried to break up powerful trusts, he became known as a trust buster. So he was the first president to want to start to break up some of these huge monopolies, these huge corporations that had way too much money and power.
Had too much money and power.
Really B, right? He was a trust buster. All right, I know I'm going rather fast, but let's keep plowing ahead here. Got one more here. All right, so this here's another summary.
Vamos.
Picture of Carnegie. Business grows in size and influence. When Thomas Jefferson was president in 1803, he dreamed of America being a land of farmers, working for themselves. But remember Alexander Hamilton, the Secretary of the Treasury? Hamilton's dream was different. He believed our country should be a bunch of cities and businesses and industry. So again, it starts with two different ideas about how people in America should live and make money. That's why Jefferson and Hamilton were often at odds with each other. Until the Civil War, though, Jefferson's worldview ruled. But after the war, Hamilton's dream began to develop as the cities grew and became our nation's future. As large manufacturers existed before the war, but few large manufacturers existed before the war. But after the war, the names of big businessmen,
Mala mía, Kyrie.
political leaders, everyone knew the names Rockefeller, Standard Oil, Carnegie, Steel, Pillsbury made flour for dough, and Armour had refrigerated rail cars for
Ajá, no te mandes.
There were many reasons for this change. Among them were the raw materials, the new inventions, cheap labor, eager consumer market means people had a little
Te
bit more to spend,
mande.
so they were buying up this stuff. The government's laissez-faire approach. You see how all of these things go together? Enterprising business community willing to exploit the new opportunities.
Yeah, mami.
America had abundant supplies of most resources needed to become an industrial giant. So we had the coal, we had the iron ore, we had petroleum, which is oil and gas. We had copper. We also had agricultural products like corn and wheat and cotton and wool. We had the technology. So we had all of the means of production developed to make these goods into useful products. Steel replaced iron. Steel was stronger and lighter and more efficient. Henry Bessemer's process was a new, quicker, advanced way to make steel to burn the impurities out of the iron. Communications improved. We had an Atlantic cable that went all the way to Europe. We
Ay,
could
esto está más
telegraph.
plata que
We
lo
could send
compren.
electronic messages all the way to Europe now. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Even though many people saw no need for this product, Edwin Drake created an oil rig, the complex oil pumping equipment, and he sunk the first oil well in 1859. Oil pump still to this day is a Drake. Within a few years, everyone was using kerosene lamps. All right, so instead of candles, which were kind of costly and burned out rather quickly, kerosene was like a liquid fuel that you could use in lamps. People still use kerosene lamps for camps and kerosene stoves. It's like propane, very similar. Even the food industry was being modernized. Charles.
Brandon Brown from Toronto Blast. I want to help. Yo, thanks, man. Thanks for the support. I really appreciate it. Hit me on Twitter to join me. Sure do.
Group these new immigrants into factories along ethnic lines, and even here in Utica, a lot of Polish immigrants settled in western Utica, western part of Utica, the West Utica. A lot of German immigrants, West Utica. A lot of the Italian immigrants settled in East Utica, and later on some of the Bosnian immigrants settled a little bit more so in East Utica. But like those ethnic neighborhoods begin to break down over time. But you can see the early histories of Utica was very kind of ethnic in a sense. The different neighborhoods and restaurants around the city. As steamship lines reached more distant ports, immigrants in larger numbers. So really, a cheaper, quicker way to get here allowed for poor immigrants to come. Immigration exceeded 10,000 for the first time. From Scandinavian countries are those northern European countries like Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and Poland, Denmark. By Italy, a lot of Italian immigrants coming by 1880, Russian immigrants 1882, Polish immigrants 1890. The immigrants not only produced the goods, they were also consumers. Plus, they brought a lot of their culture with them. They brought their certain styles of foods and their certain styles of cooking and their certain style. I love ethnic foods. I love to eat foods from other places around the world because I think I like the variety really more than anything. Many who came stayed poor though, unfortunately at first because they were making such low wages. Life in America was usually seen as much better though than what they had left in their homeland. With goods being mass-produced and prices dropping, mass-produced means you're making a whole bunch of it in factories cheaply. Prices are dropping. Consumers were always looking for bargains. Then you start to see the beginnings of department stores. Department stores sold a whole variety of things. They became more common in the cities. You start to see the first really big grocery store chain, Atlantic and Pacific, was one of the first national grocery chains. In rural areas, people looked forward to receiving, even if you lived way out in the country, away from the cities, you could order things through your Sears and Roebuck or your Montgomery Ward catalog, and they would ship it along the railroads. Now, it might take a month or two to get your stuff, but you could essentially get anything that was available in the cities. They could buy the same clothes and supplies available in the cities. The United States had no experience with large corporations, so at first the government saw no need to interfere. So here's that laissez-faire approach. The corporations were usually chartered by a state, but most of their money came from other parts of the nation and the world. So eventually the government realized, you know what, we can't leave it up to the individual states to regulate these businesses. We need to start controlling and making some national policies so that we can control the corporations in a sense. But again, not at first. As some corporations got larger, they began to wipe out the smaller competition. All right, so here's where we got to answer some short answer questions. Should be simple. Let's see, I got to find my text box here. What are some of the key natural resources that help fuel the economy? Let's get right to the point. We'll just list them. Coal, iron, timber is the trees, lumber, right? Oil, farm products, etc. Right? Sound good? Moving on. How was steel production increased? There was something known as the Bessemer process. The Bessemer process, what it does is Henry Bessemer figured out if you force air through the molten iron, or you scoop off the impurities at the top, really, and you cook the steel in a open furnace, you could burn off the impurities a lot quicker. Essentially, you can make steel a lot quicker, more efficiently, faster, and it uses less coal to make it. So, how was steel production increased? It was called the Bessemer process. Who invented the telephone? Alexander Graham Bell. Before the automobile, what was the main use of petroleum? Is like oil or natural gas product. They used it for kerosene. Kerosene is the lamps. Oil, or it's the.
Come on.
Kerosene lamps. Kerosene lamps. Petroleum is also used in paints and thinners and other chemical products, other chemical cleaning products. Who were the two leaders of the meatpacking industry? Armour and Swift. They perfected and improved refrigerated rail cars. How did most immigrants feel about their new lives in America? They were better off than the countries they were better off here than what they were in the countries that they left. Just about most were better off here, although they were living in terrible conditions here though. Often they were living in these like overcrowded slum type apartments. They were making very, very low wages and working in terrible, unsafe conditions. So we're going to take a look at the immigrant experience in a couple of classes. What kinds of jobs did the immigrants? Well, because they had limited English,
Mira lo que
they often
meta.
got stuck in these
No quería
low-paid jobs.
tirarlo.
They call them unskilled labor. on a factory line, or working as a janitor, or as a painter, or a garbage collector. So these unskilled labor type jobs were very generally lower paying jobs. And even today, a lot of immigrants come with, they have, you hear stories of doctors and they're working as, cleaners, or you hear of nurses, they can't get their certifications from their country, don't match here, or they're not recognized here, so they get stuck working, in fast food restaurants. So it's always been a difficult situation for immigrants to adjust to a new country. What was the first national grocery chain? It was called Atlantic and Pacific. We'll just put A and P. If you lived out in the country, you could mail order. You could get things through the mail from Sears and Roebuck or Montgomery Ward. What is meant by laissez-faire? Leave business alone. How's that look? Everybody got good answers? I'm gonna go back to the chat line. Everybody got good answers?
Could you show the first page again? I accidentally closed my tab.
Are you talking about what? This one? These are easy. You could just gotta read these little paragraphs. They're simple.
Can you guys put the responses, please?
Yeah. These are really easy. I'm hoping you can answer these on your own. Some of them. Most of them, really. If you missed an answer, it should be in the reading.
What was number 10 again?
The word laissez-faire means leave business alone. Limited government involvement in the big business. The government literally let these corporations pollute the environment, clear-cut lumber, forests, produce all kinds of terrible air quality in the cities. In some cases, they were selling food that was rotten, or was making people sick. So they kind of let the businesses just get away with it for a long time because they felt like they were creating jobs and driving the economy. So they kind of looked the other way. Plus, a lot of these big businesses began to donate money to the politicians to help them get elected. So there's that problem with our national government, is that they got a lot of money from these corporations, and they sometimes forget they're serving the American people, not these corporations. But because they get all these donations from these businessmen and corporations, I think a lot of these politicians lose sight of what they really should be working for, or who they should be working for. But it was called laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means leave business. It's just a general idea that the government doesn't get involved in business that much. All right,
It just makes you think of what might happen today. Like, it's just insane.
It does happen today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's exactly what happens today. Look what's happening in Texas right now. Texas had this terrible, terrible storm last week, and the whole power grid in Texas closed down. Essentially, there was 4 million people without power, and then they wanted, some of these people were because Texas is unique. Their power system is unique. The country's power system grid is really divided into 3 huge sections. You got the eastern grid, the western grid, and Texas. Texas is all by itself, and because it's all within its own state, they kind of let that. It's not crossing state lines. The people in the government in Texas basically let these corporations just get away with doing whatever the heck they wanted. And even though they've been supposed to update and modernize their electric grid system, they haven't. And And another thing they did, and I was just listening to this on the radio on the way in here. Some people were paying like market value for power. So they're just for that 1 week, that one cold week, their power bills shot up like literally like $10,000, $15,000, and now they're saying, well, there's no way that people are going to have to pay that. But this woman explained to me on the radio this morning. She's like, well, even if they don't have to necessarily pay it, what they're going to do is they're just going to spread those costs out to everybody. And so everybody in Texas will be paying more for their power now for like the next 20, 30 years. So it's just a bad situation. And you're right. The state of Texas basically let that corporation get away with doing it and setting it up that way. Yes, thanks for helping her out with that question. Does anybody else have any other questions on anything? The same thing with polluting the environment. There's a lot of corporations and businesses that are not very good for the environment. There's places in Utica that they're called brownfields. A brownfield is a reference. It's a 70s term, really. It describes where an old factory was at one time, and now that the ground is so polluted, they can't really do much with that land. Now they can try and clean it up. They can try and pump out any fuel or whatever oil is in the dirt. Sometimes they just cover it up with more dirt. But basically in earlier times, the government just let these companies dump their terrible pollutants right into the soil or into open ditches, and we realize now that you can't do that. You're going to pollute the groundwater. You're going to ruin that whole neighborhood. Anyway, we'll tie in some of the modern things today, and I really like the participation because it always makes the class way more interesting to have people chime in a little bit and some of your own experiences. So I like the participation. I think I'm going to wrap it up there, though, unless anybody else has any other questions. I do like this topic. I will try and make it interesting. I know this format is getting a little boring in general, but I'll try and find ways to make it a little bit more interesting. I used to actually do a industrial revolutionary project where I would let you pick a businessman and you can do some of your own little independent research. I'm not looking for a huge paper or anything like that, but just maybe we'll do this. We'll talk about it if you're interested next time. But if you pick one of these businesses or one of these business leaders or some aspect of the industrial, and maybe everyone to do an individual research project. It's a real tiny one. It's not a college level course, so I'll keep it in perspective. Maybe we'll do that. I'll introduce that a little bit more next time. I do like the participation, though. I think it'll make the class a little more interesting. We're a little bit past the halfway point, but I'd like to kind of keep it interesting if we can, or make it interesting again. And I do like the participation to that matter. Anybody else got anything else to say or offer?
Isn't this like the third industrial revolution? Well, the second largest.
Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely correct. I think, sometimes they count the very, very early industrial revolution before the Civil War, but usually they consider
Eres la nena buena de la onda.
in general.
Hoy te voy a
So then there
hasta que
was an industrial
sube.
revolution during the 20s, and a little bit earlier before World War I. Then there was another industrial revolution sort of after World War II in the 50s,
No, ahora me toca.
and a little bit into the 60s. During the 80s and
Más que
90s,
fallaba,
there was a
me joda.
communications revolution, a technology revolution, sometimes they call it, or a communications revolution, which is similar. And now we're almost entering the fourth or even the fifth possible industrial revolution in a sense, where today technology is getting more modern and efficient. We're also a little bit more conscientious about the
Coño,
environment
por fin.
nowadays. But we are doing a lot of things with. Some people are worried about that 5G, that cell phone. I'm literally looking out the window right now from my classroom. There's this huge cell tower right across the street by the football field. Some people are worried about the 5G, and now maybe we're exposing ourselves to low level.
Pero esa sí la meto, ¿verdad?
Our cell phones to our ears. It's like the radiation's going halfway into our brains, and have we really studied the effects of all this newer modern technology? I mean, there's so much Wi-Fi signals in the environment. Our foods are becoming so processed that there's all kinds of terrible things in our food that we eat. Yeah, I would say we're in the fourth or fifth possible. It depends on what you want to classify along the historical perspective. But I
Yeah.
think usually you see improvements, or usually you see things getting better for people, hopefully. And I hope that'll happen. I hope maybe, I think they should pay people for what they're worth. And I think if people had a little more money, could afford the cost of living, maybe they could, I don't know. You brought in a huge, complex topic that could incorporate a lot of different things. But yeah, I think we are in a technological revolution. I remember, like, even when I went to college, I think I went to college at Geneseo. There was like 5,000 people there, 4,000 people. If 10 people in the whole college had a cell phone, that was probably it. I never had a cell phone until like I started working, like, several years into work. I never had a cell phone. And now, I mean, practically, toddlers have cell phones nowadays. Same with the computers and all these. I think we're definitely changing. We're transitioning to something. I mean, even things like teaching history kind of become a little obsolete in a way, because you can Google anything now, right? Do you really need to know history if you can just kind of look it up? I don't know. Gonna make my own career obsolete. That's all right. I'm gonna retire soon enough. I do like participation. That's great. I think it will make it more interesting. Anybody else have anything else to add? Colin, I'll give you some extra credit. Those good discussion points. Let's pick up with this. Let's try and keep it interesting. Next week we'll do a little bit more with some of these other leaders of the Industrial Revolution, and we'll talk a little bit more about the adverse effects. And I'm going to stop there. I don't want to. So everyone have a nice weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday.
All right.
Yep, see ya.
Bye. See you Tuesday.
You always leave so fast.
Ya terminé esta clase, vamos para la siguiente. ¿Qué clase yo tenía? Esta. Todavía no he empezado. Vale. Ahora sí me voy a la próxima.
It's attached to a freaking string. You don't ever know about it. This is why you don't steal a bike. It sets you up. Look at them.
Oh,
Why
damn.
you shouldn't.
Dime tú.
He was running from a cop car. Jumping over that gate, gonna leave a big scar. Feel like GTA with like 3 stars. Try to get away, but he ain't get far.
Eres una bella cancabra, suma. Dame un brequecito. A ver, la cosa todavía no ha empezado. Falló. A ver. Peso con tu gemido. No vale. Ok, ya empezó la clase.
How's everyone everyone doing today? You okay? Benny, how are you?
I'm alright, just a little tired.
Yeah. It's been a long week. Not only did we have vacation last week, we are back in the building, so this feels like a very long week for me. Hi, Sade.
Yo, que te cae.
How you doing? Harris, how are you? Jessica, good morning. Jesus, good morning.
Ella jura que yo lo
Janae,
contesté.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Nice to hear voices. Sade, it looks like you're trying to talk, but your mic might not be working. Cernay, good morning. Michael, good morning.
Pues estoy cogiendo clase.
David, good morning.
Bueno, que la clase me está cogiendo a mí, pero hasta ahora no mucho más. La primera clase del maestro estaba más que hablando mierda.
Alyssa, good morning.
Yo espero que esto no de trabajo.
Let's see. Alyssa, I have a friend, Erica Closter. Is she related to you?
Ah, bueno, si el pan se uno y se va. Ya adelanto y estoy en aborrecida. Cuando
All right,
no.
well, welcome back to class, everybody. Let's see. There's a couple people I didn't get. I don't like this new setup.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your aunt? Oh, tell her I said hello.
Trae el día anterior trabajé de una hora. Nada más. ¿Y te estás quejando?
Genesis and Ashlyn, good morning. Let's see, did I get everybody? Anyone not hear their name called that I might have missed? I think I got everybody. All right, good. Welcome back. We made it to Friday. Hope you all are doing well. I think we talked about last class, the hope of coming back soon. I know
Dame
some
terminar
of
este
you
juego.
are excited, some of you not so much. I'm excited to have you come back, but it's probably a good month away from that, so we won't get too excited yet. Anybody have questions on anything so far? You should have done the chapter 2 test last class and the chapter 3 vocab, which we're going to go over today. And then I have a little video for you, and we're going to do the chapter 3 notes. Okay? Is everybody okay with that? Emma, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, I think I got everybody. Let's open up our vocab. I'm going to go through it
Acho,
with you,
no la cojo.
ask you to read off either your definition or mine. I don't care which. My
Ok, todavía.
concern is that you have a definition that makes sense to you. So when I go over it, I will try and include examples for you that might help you to remember things a little bit better. I've been looking at a couple of different videos about the court system. There's a couple good ones, and I'm going to share one of them today, and we'll just try and listen for the vocab terms that we've gone over and see it in the video, and hopefully it will help to explain it. And if that doesn't help explain it, I can help explain it. Okay, who just came in? Lindsay? Anybody else just come in? Ayana?
Ayana.
Did I miss anyone else?
Good morning.
Good morning. Willie, did I see
Oh,
you
no.
come in?
Yep.
Okay. What did I say? Willie, Lindsay, and Ayana?
Ayana.
Right? Ayana. Why did I say Ayana? Ayana. Sorry.
Ayana.
Okay. So open up your chapter 3 vocab and we will go over it. Yay, nay? Is yay, nay here? Nayana? Did I get you? No Nayana? Okay. Ennis? Eli? None of you guys? No Alyssa Lopez?
No la... Ay, iba a decir yo.
No Ashley? No. Ja? Jamin? Are you here? No. Jakai? Wow,
Qué madre.
yesterday in my class I had 28 out of 30. It was like my best attendance ever. Serjana here?
I'm here.
You're here? Okay. Vanessa? Norma? Victoria? No? I think I got everything. Okay. So, give me a sec here. Okay, so
A hombre y mujer está terminando el juego.
most of the notes, but I want to review the vocab first, make sure you understand the terms. Watch the video, talk about whatever terms we hear listed in that video, and then go through the notes. Okay?
También la bóveda, mano.
So, let's just open up my notes. Give me a sec.
Tómame. Este es mi equipo hasta ahora. Tengo este en blanco porque vendí un par de jugadores para comprarme a Ben Simmons. Me hace un huevo. Pero yo tenía primero a Alonso de Poingal y a Rudy Fernández de Churinga en banca. Pero me voy a comprar a Ben Simmons y bajé a Alonso.
Okay. So, we will go over the vocab together. I know sometimes it might seem a little monotonous, but I do think it's important because if your vocab term doesn't make sense to you,
No es la gran cosa, pero me
it
resuelve.
kind of doesn't do you any good to take the time to do the vocab. Okay? So, let me get my screen situated because, as I said before, since they changed
Este no me lo van a comprar ni para... yo se lo hubiese metido contrato.
what I present unless I open in two separate things. All right, does everyone see the terms? Are we okay?
No me voy a comprar ninguno de estos. Ahora, pues te veo cualquier cosa, quieres jugar no tiene, ya sea Warzone, lo que sea. Dale, pa, te cuidas.
I don't care which one. If you are uncertain of something, please ask the question. If my definition isn't clear,
Ya, esto me lo quiero comprar.
just ask.
Se compara que
Okay,
mismo
I
orden.
need to clarify it so you understand it. Okay, first word is litigate. Jesus, can you tell me what litigate means?
To allow a court to resolve your disputes.
Very good. What is a dispute? Let's make sure we know that. What do I mean by a dispute? Anybody can answer that. Doesn't have to be just Jesus. What's a dispute, guys?
A conflict.
Conflict, an argument, okay? A disagreement. So going to court and solving a disagreement or a conflict. Very good. What is a mediator? Who's next? Genesis. Can you read that one, sweetie? No? Genesis? Paris, can you read that one for me? A mediator?
Who the
Where's
fuck is
everybody?
this?
Jakai, are you here? Hello? Anybody out there? Jakai, did I see you come in? Okay, yeah, let me know, honey. All right. Nobody wants to read these? Bella, can you read a mediator, honey?
An independent third party who tries to develop a solution acceptable to both parties. It is an advisory action, not legally binding on the parties.
Mira, mamá huevazo.
Okay, let me explain to you guys what that means. Let's say that we have a dispute, okay? Bella and I maybe are neighbors, and we have a disagreement. We have a shared driveway, and we've been fighting over who gets to park where. Instead of going to court and having the expense of hiring a lawyer and time in the court system, we get a mediator to settle our dispute or our disagreement. The thing about a mediator that's different from the next term is it's just advice. It is not legally binding, meaning it's not like a
I'm
judge's
legally
decision.
blind.
On the other hand, if we hire an arbitrator, Michael, can you read that one for me?
Holds an informal hearing to determine what happened. Unlike mediator's decision, this is binding on both parties.
Okay, so if Bella and I get an arbitrator to handle it, and they decide maybe in her favor, that decision is binding, meaning I have to follow whatever that arbitrator decides. Unlike a mediator where I could say, forget it, I'm taking you to court, okay? So this is binding. Notice I circled the B in arbitrator and the B in binding, so you would remember the difference there. Mediator, not legally binding. Arbitrator is legally binding. Basically, it's the same type of third party that comes in to help you settle your dispute. Does that make sense? Yes, Miss Stefina, that makes sense. Okay, great. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Ashlyn, can you read that one, honey?
Ashlyn.
A governmental forum that administers justice under the law. Disputes are decided between private individuals in criminal cases.
Very good. So court can be civil or criminal. We'll talk more about that. Trial court. Vinny, can you read that one?
Trial court hears witnesses testify and reviews the other important evidence first to determine the facts of the case.
Good. Next term is verdict. Saw, can you read that one? Who's next? I'll read that one. It's a quick one. Verdict, a decision made in trial court. The next term goes along with trial court. It's called original jurisdiction. Emma, can you do that one for me?
The power to make the initial decision or verdict of fact and law.
Okay, good. So trial courts have original jurisdiction. The video is going to help explain this a little bit better, the different levels of courts. Appellate court. Eli, can you read appellate court definition?
Reviews the
Mic go out, hon?
reviews decision of lower courts when a party claims an error of law was made during the lower court's proceeding.
Okay, so first there's a trial court, and then it moves up to an appellate court. If I don't like the decision I get at my trial, I can appeal it to a higher court, which is the appellate court. Very good. Okay, transcript. Alyssa, favorite is
Bueno,
verbatim.
80.
You don't know it. Go ahead, honey. Alyssa, Poster, you here, hon? Willie, can you read that one? Transcript.
Sure. Verbatim. Word for word.
Verbatim.
Verbatim. Word for word. Record of what went on trial. At trial.
Excellent. Now, you guys might remember from seeing different
Let's get it.
TV shows that there's someone in the courtroom who sits at a little keyboard and types everything. Anyone ever remember that from any courtroom drama they've seen on TV?
Yeah, I know someone who does that.
You do, yeah? And what is that job called? Anybody know? Emma, do you know what that's called?
No, I don't.
No. It's called a court reporter. They take down everything that is said in the courtroom. So if some random person is in the back of the courtroom and yells out something crazy, the court reporter would still have to type that up because it's part of what happens. Maybe it might sway the jury, whatever this random person yelled out. Okay? So everything that goes on at trial is recorded. The reason that is so important is if I go to trial and I get found guilty and want to appeal my case to a higher court, the appellate court judges need to see that transcript to know what went on. Okay, very good. Next term is appellate brief. Janae, go ahead, honey.
Written arguments on the issues of law.
Aunque no es pena, si no me compran a Rudy, me compra a Carmalón.
Very good. Please don't mix up. A lot of students mix up the transcript and the appellate brief. The transcript happens
Ahora llegas, ¿verdad?
trial. The appellate brief is what the lawyers write up after the trial to try and get you an appeal. Okay, Ayana, what is general jurisdiction?
Pues así como está diciendo, si no me compran a Rudy, me quedo con él un tiempito más. Pongo a Alonso otra vez en cuadra y me compro a Carmalón.
Very good. The difference between general jurisdiction and specialized will help us understand that. So let's go to specialized jurisdiction. Jakai, can you read that one?
Vamos a ver si el pana se va.
Hi? No? You there? Mohammed, can you read specialized jurisdiction?
The authority to hear only one specific type of case.
Very good. So any type of case falls under original jurisdiction or general jurisdiction. More specialized goes into specialized, like someone under 18 would be in what type of court? Juvenile. Very good, Lindsay. Juvenile court. If you have a certain type of issue with someone's will, that's handled by what's called probate courts. We'll explain more about these as we get into the notes. Okay.
Oh, you taking notes?
I don't know. I think I've been saying it wrong. I always said writ of certiorari.
We
but
taking
they
notes.
pronounce it a little bit differently in the video we're going to watch today. Who wants to read this definition? You don't have to say the term. Lindsay, can you read this one, honey? Writ of certiorari.
Yeah. An order from the Supreme Court to the state court to turn over the record of a case to the Supreme Court for review.
Very good. So if I appeal my case all the way up to the Supreme Court, this has to be issued in order for them to gather all the evidence from the lower courts. Court of Record. Surjana, can you read that one, dear?
Oh man, de otro lado.
Here, honey?
A trial court that gives an exact account of what goes on at the trial.
Eso no es falso, no venga a estar llorando.
So this is saying the trial court where everything
Mano.
is recorded on that transcript.
Qué foul.
Everything is kept on record so that we know for an appeal. That's called the court of record.
Oh man, créate Goku, ya te claro.
Associate
¿Quién te lo
circuit
impide?
court and county courts are basically the same thing. They're called different things in different states.
Wow.
Sir, can you read that
Y
definition?
fallo. Ah, eso es malo. Volado. Acá.
No? Back up to you, Jesus. Can you read that one for me? Associate circuit court or county court?
Yeah, I'm not reading shit.
You guys are killing me today.
I'm not
Nobody's
reading shit.
listening or nobody wants to talk?
Ya yo leí, yo no pienso leer más nada. Ya te leí la primera, no venga.
Here, minor criminal cases, state traffic offenses, and lawsuits in which relatively small amounts are involved, not courts of record.
All right. The amount is usually over $25,000 for associate circuit courts or county courts.
Qué madre.
Municipal court. Municipal court. Michael, can you read that one for me?
Which one?
Municipal
La persona que está viendo, comente.
City courts divided into traffic and criminal divisions.
Okay. So it's usually minor criminal. Minor criminal. Small claims court. Who's up next? Ashlyn, can you read that one?
Taquito, talaquito. Estoy loco.
No?
Ah, vamos, cosen. No me falle solo. Que me fui bien atrás, pero...
Vinny, will you read that one?
Yeah. Small claims courts. Courts that handle disputes in which small amounts, generally $2,500 or less, are involved.
Here's the problem with my definition. I looked this up. I thought I updated it. It's now 10,000.
It's now 10,000.
Did anyone else find that in their definition?
Their definition.
I updated it in my notes, but I guess I didn't do it in this.
In this.
Okay? It's now 10,000. The textbook is dated. I had an old textbook definition. Okay, thank you, Vinny. Emma, can you read the next one, juvenile courts?
Yeah, juvenile courts established specifically
Classical Malone Gigi.
persons under the age of 18 who have not been charged as adults.
Very good.
No es por nada, yo creo que esta es como la vuelta ya que me sale joda.
We'll talk more about that as far as how severe the crime is, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Probate courts. Eli, can you read that one?
Which one?
Probate.
Ah, que bajaste de precio.
Courts that
Mira.
Courts that administers will.
Yep.
Mira.
Very good. Wills and estates. What does that mean? Wills and estates.
Ah, ya me mandé.
Somebody who what?
Anda, que tú estás bien barato.
When someone passes away, their will, even if they don't have a will, they have an estate. Anything they have of value is handled by probate courts.
Like inheritance and all that?
Say again, honey?
Like inheritance and all that?
Que tú estás así de barato, brother.
What people don't tend to think of is, I found out when my husband passed away how involved the probate court gets in everything you do. Like, all of his, any account he had was frozen. Because if it was just in his name, they had to make a separate estate account. They had to make sure that I was the one to handle his money. Because it's not just about what you inherit from that person, it's also making
madre, esto
sure
me
that
agarra.
you satisfy any debts that they owe, any money that they may have borrowed, a mortgage, a car loan. So it's not even just about what you
Kevin
have or
Love,
inherit,
duraste
it's
mucho.
also paying out before you get any of that money.
Ah,
So all
bueno,
debts
que
have to
Carmelo
be
estaba.
satisfied, then the money can be
Bueno.
distributed to whomever.
Ok, ¿qué tú
they need.
necesitas?
We'll talk more about that. It's very involved. I would never have guessed how involved it is. Here you would think
Un
my
tenía
case was pretty
triple
straightforward.
y de ball
My husband
handle.
had a will leaving me basically everything, and it still took
Ok.
over a year to settle his estate. It's a
¿Tu
very
qué significa que coge cualquier tenis?
Okay. Well, before we hop into the notes, is everybody okay with the vocab?
Yes.
Okay. I found a couple
Perfecto.
of different videos, and I did attach the link here. The one guy did a great job, but he talked super fast, and I felt like it wouldn't give you guys time to actually hear the terms and make note of the
Perfecto.
different vocab. I want to see you guys typing in the chat here. I'm not going to assign a separate worksheet and make more work for you, but I want to see you type in the chat whenever we hear a term from our vocab from this video, okay? So we can get a better idea and discuss it a little. This guy's kind of dorky, but he's kind of good. I like his presentation of the court system, okay? So here we go.
Hypothetically, that is, let's say you are accused of breaking the law. You are under arrest.
Okay.
Hypothetically, that is, let's say you are accused.
Everyone here okay?
Anda. Ok. Ah, bueno, si estoy un poco rápida. Me...
Jeez. Judas Priest needs to get their hearing checked. Anyway, this video is about the American court system. And yeah, let's
Mira.
of a crime in the United States. First of all, you are innocent until proven guilty.
Mira. ¿Quién tú te crees?
Say you're accused of breaking a federal law.
Ah, bueno, que el pana es...
Or anything in the US Constitution, really. First of all,
Ah, bueno.
go straight to the federal court system. You start out in district courts, aka the
Anda. Vale. Mano, Rudy, que no te compren. No te compren.
Other states, like Texas, have 4. Even some of the United States territories get district courts. Aw, that's nice. Each district court has at least one judge, appointed by the president and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. They can serve for life, unless they misbehave, of course. One of the judges in my district, a dude named Sam...
Ay, el pana se cree... Ay, Dios, ¿qué le digo yo?
He is 93 freaking years old, but he's joined by 10 others. I should say that Crow would be considered a youngin' compared to this guy, Wesley Brown, who died in 2012 at the age of 104, was actively hearing cases also in the District of Kansas up until a month before.
Una triple, ¿verdad? ¿Triple y qué? Comprate una triple y volando. Vale.
At the district level, there also are subject-specific courts. You know, courts that specialize in certain areas, like taxes, claims against the federal government, and international trade. Also, each district...
Espérate, ¿cuánto él tiene de velocidad? Porque también puedo ponerme... Triple, velocidad... Y ball handle. O steel. Aunque no, pues nada, está bastante rápido.
Hey, could you please put up that map again? Thank you.
Like que encuentro.
So I'd be appealing in District 10. No, not that District 10, the U.S. Court of Appeals for
No hay que
the
encontrar por
10th
15
Circuit.
mil.
There you go. Each circuit court has multiple judges, ranging from 6 in the First Circuit all the way to 29 in the Ninth Circuit. Again, all of them appointed by the President and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Again, they can serve for life unless they misbehave. Some circuit courts also deal with specific subjects, such as veterans' claims
Closure
and military matters.
3.3
So,
speed
say they
para
find
no
you
bajando.
guilty in circuit
Entonces tú
court.
tienes 3 blood, 3 dry dunk.
No worries, it's not over yet,
No.
although you might worry a bit. You
Tienes
can
3 dry
appeal again,
dunk.
this time to the highest court in the land, as they
Blood
say, the
integral
Supreme
defense
Court
3
of the United
point.
States, who meet in
Deal,
the
no.
Capitol, Washington, D.C. You've got
Draft
to petition to them,
no.
basically suck up to them so they'll hear your case. The fancy phrase for this is a writ of certiorari. Unfortunately for you, less than 1% of all appeals are actually heard by the Supreme Court. It's made up of 9 justices, again nominated by the President and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. No surprise here, they can serve for life unless they misbehave, but who are we
3
kidding?
ball handle, 3 point
Justices
shot.
ever out of the Supreme
Este.
Court, of all the 112
Compro este.
justices in American history, only one has ever been impeached for, get this, being political with his decisions. That was Samuel Chase, and while Congress impeached him in 1804, they acquitted him later on, and he got to stay on the court. The Supreme Court hears between 100 and 150 cases each year. They meet
Está
beginning
bueno,
the first Monday in
pues vamos a
October,
llevárnosla.
and depending on how busy they get, meet regularly until the next summer, usually until late June. Sometimes the Supreme Court will combine lower court appeals into one case, and sometimes cases even begin in the Supreme Court. This is called original jurisdiction, and one example of this happening when there is a dispute between 2 states.
Ay, que le subí 89 a... No está mal, bajando 86 no está mal. Bien. Está bien. Está más que bien, fíjate.
Check it out for a deeper understanding of the Supreme Court, eh? If the Supreme Court rules against you, I'm sorry, you're done. However, the Supreme Court does have a regular habit of overruling itself every so often. For example, they said segregated public facilities were okay in the case of Plessy v. Ferguson, but later overruled themselves with the Brown versus the Board of Education decision. Granted, that was 9 different justices by that time, but
Mano, yo te voy a enseñar que te consiste de mete este. Y creo que me metí con el equipo que no era.
Because most laws that apply to you are state laws. State courts handle the vast majority of criminal cases in the country. While it's different in every state, state courts are usually common law courts.
Creo que me metí con el equipo que no era.
Precedent or previous judicial decisions to interpret
Qué
state
madre.
laws. They are courts of, quote, general jurisdiction, meaning they hear all kinds of cases. Oh yeah, these state court judges, depending on the state or jurisdiction, may be appointed by the governor for life, like federal judges, or appointed for a limited time, or elected. Actually, 90% of state judges are elected, and nearly every American who votes has no idea who they are, yet many of them vote for them anyway. So a judge will hear your case, which probably will be settled without a trial. You'll probably just say you're guilty, even if you're not. That's right. Probably more than 90% of cases end in guilty pleas and never go to trial. But say you're lucky enough to get your case to trial. Similar to federal courts, state courts also have district courts, appeals courts, and Supreme Courts. Although in some states the highest court is called
Luego,
something
chécate
else.
esto.
So say you are found guilty at every level in state courts. Well, you could then appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States, but the odds of the Supreme Court hearing your case from the state courts is even less likely
Mírate
than it
esto.
was if
No
it was
tienen.
the federal court system.
Y no tienen ni rincha extender.
A lawyer or 2 or 3 or 4 to defend yourself in the legal system.
Veas, me cae mal.
In fact, if you do end up appealing your case,
No metas nada ahora.
thousands of dollars. For serious charges, it's even more.
Yo no vacile. Ay, si ahorita estamos metiendo, no venga. Coño.
per case. So yeah, let's just say you want to sue someone. Well, that's civil courts. You know, civil cases. And it can happen in both state and federal courts. First of all, you can sue anyone for almost anything as long as there's a valid cause of action. You first have to let the defendant know you are suing them and why you are suing them. Hey, that reminds me.
Toma, sigue fallando.
Hello? Hey, Steven. How are you doing? Oh, great. How are you? Oh,
Coño.
great. How is the family?
No es por nada. Yo fallo menos con él que con Kirilenko. Y Kirilenko tiene insignia. Hacho, para eso sí, un miri. Jeje. Lo voy a fallar. Voy a fallar un miri.
You can demand the defendant pays you or try to get a court to order the defendant from doing whatever it was you were suing them for. Judges will try
Y no es por nada. Esto tiene más defense que el mismo Kirilenko. Obviamente. Claro, no me quiere meter desde arriba. Está bellaco. Del wing es más consistente.
So if you do get that jury, or if you are just appearing before a judge, you have to convince them by what's known as a quote preponderance.
Para no tener reach extender.
In other words, it has to
Y un 83 de triple. Está bien duro.
Can appeal just like with criminal cases. So good luck to you, you innocent until end there. And thanks for watching. Likely from prison. Hypothetically.
A family vacation in a verbo means leaving all the craziness behind. Well, maybe not all of it.
Y tú dices que está bien mierda. Apretado.
Okay.
Apretado.
I know it was kind of dorky, but I think it was
Apretado.
a lot of what he talked about we're going to cover in the notes. But sometimes I think the hearing it from someone other than me might help you guys get a better understanding of things. But that vacation home, let's go there. Okay, so a lot of you typed terms in the chat that were in this chapter. Okay, excellent job. I'm just scrolling back through. Let's see.
Yo no sé ni qué hacer. Como que quiero seguir jugando, pero a la misma vez no.
Willie, U.S. Court of Appeals, Circuit Court, Janae, Mohammed, Supreme Court.
No es por nada, si yo me tiro un live en Escape, si es que me deja. ¿Lo va a ver? Quiero dar un ratito de Escape.
Lindsay, Original Jurisdiction, Bella, U2, Ayana, U2. Bella got State Courts. Lindsay and Ayana, General Jurisdiction.
Vaya, güey, postearon la... Oh, shit. Mira, si viene James Harden con 95 de triple y 90 de driving. Está bien hackeado, no es por nada. Y tiene defense, tiene bastante defense. Tiene... Ah, bueno, si yo estoy ciego. Tiene 96 de perimeter. Ajá, bueno. Y viene un Dirk Nowitzki. 98. Anda. Los dos son 98. James Harden y Nowitzki vienen 98. Entonces Nowitzki tiene 93 de triple, 95 de miri, 95 standing y driving, 82 de perimeter, interior 88. Está bien bajito, no es por nada, pero coño. Está medio hackeado, no es por nada. Sí, mano. Hacho, ese no veis que iba a estar hackeado. Ese no veis que iba a estar hackeado.
Nobody talks.
Te lo voy a enviar.
No one remembers precedent? Very good, Willie. Very good. That's right. When a judge makes a decision, that decision is used in any future cases. So previous case decisions are used to keep things consistent. A crime I am committed or I am accused of and may be found guilty of, and maybe you get the same situation a year later, the courts should follow the precedent set in my decision. Okay?
Bueno, pues voy a tirar un light de
We're
escape.
gonna see